Hello and welcome to Quarterlight, your car brochure channel, and in today's episode, the first generation Ford Mondeo. Welcome back and welcome to Ford Fridays. I hope you've had a great week. Hooray, it's nearly the weekend. If you're new to Quarterlight, we look at car brochures from many different generations, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and sometimes even outside that scope. So if you think that might interest you as a car enthusiast, or indeed someone who's interested in car brochures, if you subscribe is what I'm trying to say, it'd be much appreciated, and thank you. Anyway, Ford Fridays, we always look at a Ford on a Friday. We're not here at Quarterlight to champion any make, but Fords are obviously popular, so that's why we've started doing that. Today's episode, the Mark 1 Ford Mondeo. Sales began March 1993 and was a big change from the Sierra. Front wheel drive, if you remember, so that was a big change. Sierra was kind of like a big change from the Cortina, but there was a little bit cautious about making it front wheel drive, so it was more traditionally a rear wheel drive vehicle. Mondeo changed that, front wheel drive. The brochures we're going to look at, we're actually going to look at a couple of brochures early on to compare a little bit between the two. Kind of like one brochure is a little bit clearer than the other, but it's nice to see how the trim levels changed. I'm waffling, so I better show you the brochures. Okay, so here's the two brochures. This is a nice early one to start with. This is February 1994. Remember, sales only started around about March 93. And it also gives us this lovely cover. I really do like the cover of this particular one. This is an all cars range brochure, but they've still gone out of their way to show this Mondeo's Car of the Year 1994, shown on the front cover as a Ghia. The second brochure and the main brochure that we'll be looking at, we'll probably just refer back to this at some points. This particular brochure is dated March 1996, so it's kind of like at the end of this first generation. The facelift came in 96, but it was October 96, so it's a nice one to compare how it changed at the beginning to the end of these early Mark 1 Mondeos. And straight away, actually, the front cover shows one of the changes, incidentally. These are both Ghia models, but you can see on this one, it's got this sort of fake sort of chrome surround. Looks like it's just tacked on, really. So they did add that on there just to distinguish the Ghia a little bit better. The other thing on here, and again we'll see this later on as well, the Ghia in 94 and the early Mondeos, the Mondeo Ghia I should say, came standard alloy wheels. By this stage, alloy wheels were an optional extra, so it's interesting to see that change. The main reason for the change is Ford trying to save a bit of money, but above and beyond that, the Ghia X arrived and the standard alloy wheels became on then. So I guess in a way these earlier Mondeos were a little bit better valued than the late Mark 1s. Anyway, let's open these brochures up and then see what we can see and see what range were in the different years. So on this earlier brochure, so in 1994 we had this base level model, the Mondeo. Didn't have any sort of designation. It wasn't the L, it wasn't the Popular, it wasn't anything, which was strange because the next model up was the LX, so in theory you'd think this was the L, but indeed Ford didn't give it any sort of designation at all, which was a little bit strange, wasn't it? I think it would have been a better sell if they called it the L, personally. Did people hate the L badge so much by 94? I'm not sure they really did. But later on, at the end of the Mark 1 years, and this later brochure in March 96, we still have this very base model, and it's pretty much the same, isn't it? It's showing this sort of flat red, same alloy wheels, so nothing's really changed, apart from the fact that they've now started calling this the Mondeo Aspen, and we've got a little Aspen badge at the bottom there. So Ford started using a lot of the models, actually the base model, calling it the Aspen for whatever reason. And I guess maybe Aspen does sound a little bit better. I've got a Mondeo Aspen, possibly sounds a little bit better than saying I've got a Mondeo L, but even so, surely better to have the L badge on than call it the Mondeo nothing. So that's a little bit weird. But we always kind of like appreciate base model cars here on Quarterlight. They sometimes give you things a little bit different. So let's have a look at what specifications we actually got on this 1996 Ford Mondeo base model Mondeo Aspen. Let's zoom in. So the Mondeo Aspen matches impeccable road credentials with the dual benefit of comprehensive safety and anti-theft measures. Standard features include driver's airbag, power assisted steering, parameter alarm and safeguard engine immobiliser, central double locking with torch key, remote fuel filler flap and tailgate boot lid release, tinted glass, lights on audible warnings, 4-door operated front courtesy light with delayed switch off, fully reclined front seats trimmed in stage fabric with side storage bins, driver's seat cushion tilt adjust, steering column adjust for rake and reach, stereo radio cassette model 2006, and then we've got key optional extras. We could have ABS, front passenger airbags, adjustable rear head restraints and metallic paint. So reading that list, for a base model, it was pretty well equipped really, particularly when we think about brochures from old. I mean, your Ghia not too long ago would have struggled to have that much equipment on it. The models you could get it as your 4-door saloon shown here, or indeed your 5-door hatch. And the engines, you could have a 1.6 or your 1.8 turbo diesel. So overall, a pretty well equipped car, and that's that little Aspen badge I was mentioning. There we go, we're now calling it the Aspen. Those sorts of cheaper lower end wheel trims, and this flat red. Interesting though, the older brochures always used to say this is a Ford Mondeo in signal red with the following options on here. They stopped doing that, and I don't know why, but it's not a difficult colour to actually identify this one. This is going to be radiant red. I almost said Aspen red there, which probably would have made sense for this base model, but radiant red, sort of like a flat red colour at the time. Next up we had the LX, and this is the earlier brochure. So if we move to the later brochure, we can still see it's, you know, is it the same wheel trim or is that a slightly different wheel trim? I'm going to say that they did actually change the wheel trim slightly, haven't it? It is a slightly different wheel trim now on these later models. But other than that, it's kind of like showing a 5-door hatch, isn't it, on both models there. Quite a striking colour, this one. Again, your LX badge is going to be seen underneath that indicator, similar sort of placement as your Aspen badge was. There it is. Those new wheel trims. And we'll look at the specifications now as well for this later model. So the Mondeo LX interior specification features the benefit of heated windscreen, remote central locking and interior door handle illumination. Sets a standard by which other cars should be judged. Standard features, so driver's airbag, power assisted steering, parameter alarm and safeguard engine immobiliser, remote central locking, double locking, heated windscreen, quick clear with heated washer jets, a tachometer, interior door handle illumination, tilt or slide screen sunroof. LX always seemed to be like that, didn't they? Always liked adding that sunroof on an LX. Electrically operated front windows with one-shot lowering on driver's side. Stereo radio, that model 2006, and we can have the optional extras, front passenger airbag, adjustable rear head restraints, driver's seat electric height adjustment. And it looks like we could also option air conditioning and ABS on that as well. And also a bit more choice on sort of engine gearboxes. You can still have it as a 4 or a 5 door, but you can have it as a 1.6, a 1.8, a 2 litre, and a 1.8 turbo diesel. And there was also options on there as well. This is a bit of a look at the Mark 1's interior. Not a bad thing. They weren't too bad at making interiors for it. It didn't look bad at all for a lower end spec Ford Mondeo. I'm trying to think about this colour now actually. What colour is that? Like I say, I wish like the older brochures they actually said this is a Ford Mondeo in. It's going to be a metallic by the looks of it. Imperial blue, were they doing imperial blue in at this time? I think that's what I'll probably plump for. I actually just cheated and just had a quick look back in the brochure there. It looks like imperial blue was gone by this stage. Imperial blue was on in the 94 models, gone by this stage, so this is probably petrol blue. Next up, the Mondeo GLX. I always thought that was a nice sort of range, sort of like your mid-range model. The GLX, sort of your upper range anyway. I used to like, it had this darker area at the back, and the wheel trims looked quite nice, didn't they? They were just wheel trims, but they looked a little bit more special. GLX badge underneath that indicator as well. If we look at the later brochure, again, it's showing a very similar car, isn't it, in saloon car form. The big difference here though, it is actually showing a rear wiper on there. Unusual, isn't it, to get a wiper in a saloon, but Ford kind of liked adding those in to make it look a little bit special more than any sort of practicality, although I don't think the saloons needed it as much as a hatch, but I guess it showed it was a bit of a better car. However, you couldn't get that wiper on your earlier GLX, and even now that was actually an optional extra on the GLX. I think you could specify your rear wiper on every model apart from the Aspen at this time. You certainly couldn't do on the earlier brochure. I think that was just like your gear, you could option it on, but maybe we'll have a look at that later on just to confirm that. We'll have a look at some of these specifications and write-up though for this GLX model. Okay, Mondeo GLX is distinguished by high levels of comfort and convenience, put it in a class of its own. Standard features include driver's airbag, electronic ABS, power assisted steering, front fog lights now on this one, electrically operated heated mirrors and body coloured housings, remote control central locking, double locking, interior handle illumination, perimeter alarm with safeguard engine immobiliser, fully reclining front seats with adjustable driver's lumbar support, driver's seat electric height adjustment, rear seat folding armrest, fully adjustable rear head restraints, stereo radio model 2006, and then the options you could have, extra cost of course, would be front passenger airbag and that CFC free air conditioning. The models you could have it 1.6i, 1.8i, 2 litre I, 2 litre I auto, or you can have that 1.8 turbo diesel. And here is a look at that GLX interior. And then just going back to this original big picture, you can see sometimes colour coordinated rear view door mirrors, your GLX badge, that interesting wheel trim, and of course that rear wiper. Hard to see on this, but usually this is kind of like stands out. I think the colour itself on this one, I think it's black. I kind of like overthinking this a bit. It probably will be ash black. And then on this earlier brochure, again looks like a Mondeo in ash black. This time it's the SI, the so-called more sportier model of Mondeo. Interestingly, positioning this in this older brochure above a gear, but in this older brochure, sorry, this newer brochure, the SI is next on the list. They did kind of like tweak it a bit in this later brochure to look a little bit more sporty, because I don't think they really tried too hard to make this particularly sporty back in February '94. Although we have got quite nice alloy wheels on there. We can see on this later one, we've now got this sort of nice front fog lamps and this different colour lower down, making it overall a bit of a sportier look. There are also other benefits of this later 96 SI. Observant will notice you can now get it as a 4x4. That wasn't the case on the earlier brochure. And also you could get it as a 2.5 litre V6 or a 2 litre 16 valve. The earlier brochure, you could only get that as a 2 litre 16 valve. So that's interesting. It was still a 4 or a 5 door car. Alloys are different as well, aren't they? I've just noticed. Compared to these alloys, these were standard on the earlier brochure. Different alloy wheel, however, now optional extra, the alloy isn't a standard piece of kit on this 94 one. So we'll give you some, we'll take some things away. That's just forward for you. We'll have a look though at some of these specifications. So your Mondeo SI and SI 4x4 available with either a 2.5 injection V6 or 2 litre injection 16 valve engine. The Mondeo SI as sport style with a rear spoiler, front fog lamps and 6x15 wheels with 6 sport covers. There you go, it's just a wheel cover. Standard exterior features include your 2 litre I on the 4-wheel drive model, traction control standard on 4x4 and 2.5, your ABS, power assisted steering, parameter alarm and safeguard engine. We can also have a look at that alloy. So this is the optional 6-sport alloy, this one. Like I say, alloy wheel was standard on the earlier one. We've also got interior door handle illumination, remote control central double locking, body colour rear spoiler, tailgate lip on 5-door, boot lid wing on the 4-door, and then there's your options. That 6x15 alloy wheel with 195 60x15 tyres, and as you can see, there's the different options. We could also get a auto on the 2.5 if we wanted. The 4x4 looks like it came as the 2 litre though. And then just compared to that, the earlier brochure, that's your SI, and that's the only one that they had on there. So, like I said, they moved the game on and changed it a little bit, didn't they? And it's talking about the stylish body coloured rear spoiler adds to the SI's flowing aerodynamic lines. The 4-door boot lid wing is shown, and that's this little picture down here. Again, I do like this darker area, but you had to have brighter colours to really show it off, so red was a good colour for this particular model. Showing 24 valves, so this must have been your 2.5 shown here. And then next up, although in this earlier brochure it's actually one down because it's showing the SI as the top of the range one, the Mondeo Gear, the car you always aspired to have. Shown here with alloy wheels, and like I said at the start of the programme, these alloy wheels were standard on the Gear at this time. The other thing that was standard on the gear at this time was the air conditioning. You got air conditioning standard on your Mondeo gear. The newer model Mondeo gear, you had to option alloy wheels, you had to option air conditioning, but of course they added another model to the range, the Gear X. At this time, no Gear X. But anyway, let's look at the later brochure. Turn the page from the SIs, and that incidentally is the interior on the SI, which was quite a nice place to be. A little bit sporty, wasn't it? And then we get to the gear, and again we could have it as a gear 4x4, again showing this new sort of grille treatment to make it stand out that this was the gear, although we're getting like wheel covers as standard at this stage. Okay, so first of all, showing the gear badge here. The best thing about the gear really is I proudly having that gear badge. The new specification 2.5 V6 and 2 litre 16 valve models combine all the traditional style expected from a gear with excellent equipment levels, handling, drivability and braking. Standard exterior features include a 2 litre 4-wheel drive model, electronic ABS, traction control on the 4x4 and 2.5, heated windscreen, quick clear and heated washer jets, perimeter alarm and safeguard engine immobilizer, and remote control central double locking, body colour body side mouldings and door handles, body colour bumpers, front fog lamps, 6x15 steel wheels, and then optional extras are that alloy. And as you can see, quite a choice in engines. You could get as small as a 1.8 on your gear, 2 litre or a 2.5. Again, that 1.8 turbo diesel is an option as well. If we refer back to the earlier brochure though, the choices aren't quite as good. We can just have it as a 2 litre or a 1.8 turbo diesel, interestingly enough. So the key features on this later one, like I say, that unique grille, body coloured mirrors, and indeed these are body coloured mouldings, and of course your little gear badge on there as well, featuring these wheel trims. I guess the colour, I'm trying to think of the colour again on this Mondeo, and it's kind of like eluding me a little bit. The darker blue was called State Blue, I think, so I think that's what I'll guess. The colours are at the end of the brochure actually, so we will look at them at the end anyway. This is your interior of your Gear and Gear 4x4, you know, traditionally adding that sort of fake wood to the mix, making it certainly looks like a nicer place to be for sure, and there's certainly nice seats in there. I'm not a huge fan of leather, I must admit, and that's not particularly Ford or any model. You know, I much prefer a nice sort of velour if possible. I'm not entirely sure if that is velour, but it certainly looks like a nice place to be. Looks like a little bit of wood on the handles, but there isn't any sort of wood going across the door cards by the looks of it, but certainly a nice place to be. And you can just about make out that rear armrest on there as well. Okay, so the specifications continue on this gear model: driver's airbag, leather covered gear knob, rear courtesy lights, etc., leather trimmed steering wheel, electrically operated front and rear windows this time, driver's seat height adjustment, electric, fully adjustable rear head restraints, stereo rear cassette now is a 2007, and you can actually option it for an auto changer 2050 if you was a bit of a music lover. Other options include that front passenger airbag, but more importantly, now your air conditioning is an option on your gear when it didn't used to be. However, this new luxury model is added. We don't have this on the earlier brochure, the Gear X and Gear X 4x4. And look at those seats, standard leather seats, which is unusual. Usually even on the Gear X's, you usually have to specify leather as an optional extra. I know some people say on these Ford seats how baggy they look. I'm sure they're still a very nice place to be, although like I say, I'm not a huge leather fan, but it certainly looks like an executive car with those seats in there. Let's read the specifications though. So the Mondeo Gear X is equipped to satisfy the most discerning motorist. The power driver's seat ensures that the ideal driving position can be achieved with the minimum of fuss, with leather trim, air conditioning and, on petrol models, cruise control, a trip computer and graphic information module as standard. The Mondeo Gear X is clearly a car that offers you motoring without compromise. So you get an alloy wheel now, you get air conditioning, like I say you got them on the Gear anyway earlier on. You got driver's airbag, leather trim, cruise control, rear courtesy lights, front footwell lights and front reading lights, wood effect surround to heater control, console, ashtray drawer, pen holder, gear lever, gator, surround and door pulls. So going for wood all as much as they possibly, all the wood really. Leather covered gear lever, leather trimmed 4-spoke steering wheel, 10 function electric adjustment on the driver's seat, fully adjustable rear head restraints, electrically operated windows all round. Stereo is a 2007 with that 2050. Auto changer as well. And then your options are your front passenger airbag. You think they'd just throw it in on the Gear X model at least, wouldn't you? But there you go. Engine choices, you've got that 2 litre now or the 2.5. 2 litre looks like it only comes on the 4x4 model, although you can get an automatic on this on the 2 litre or the 2.5. It also gives us a glimpse of that gear badge again and some of these little bits of additional features on this model, like so. And then we get to estates. It shows the estates on both model, this time showing as a gear on this older brochure and a gear on this newer brochure. This one's in silver, an easier colour to recognise. On this time it would be Stardust silver, that one. Interesting thing is the amount of different models that you could get your estate on has kind of like improved quite a bit. So let's have a look at that. So on the older model you could get it as your LX, your GLX or your Gear as a 1.6, a 1.8, 2 litre even. By the time it got to later on in your sort of first generation Mondeo, you can see now we've got that huge long list of estates, even being able to have it as that base model, which is now called the Aspen. But of course we've got the Gear X's on there as well and automatics. So like I said, that's certainly your choice as your estate car buyer. Really has vastly improved. Lovely little graphic on the next page showing this sort of like see-through effect to show you how much equipment you can actually get in there with the seats folded down. Interestingly, it's exactly the same image on the earlier brochure as well, showing this GLX version. We then get to the specification page. We're only going to concentrate on this later March 96 brochure to show the specifications, otherwise it'll get way too complicated. But like we always do, we'll move the camera slowly down, but if you ever want to pause the screen to look at anything in particular, you certainly can do. And it starts by showing all the different models. I guess it's talking about curb weights between the 4-door and the 5-door Mondeo. Incidentally, talking about the 4-door Mondeo. They didn't seem to be as popular, did they, as the hatch in the Mondeo, whereas the Sierra, I think the Sapphire was quite a popular car. So I think the saloon Mondeo is probably the more rarer of the two now. At the bottom here we get a bit of engine data for those different engine sizes. Like I say, if you want to read through all that, please pause the screen. There are all the fuel and performance figures. Certainly by far the fastest is that 2.5 with the manual 24 valve V6. Top speed of 139, which is quick, isn't it? 0 to 60 in 8.1. That was certainly the speedy one of the vehicles there. Although of course it does affect your fuel economy, but possibly not by as much as you may expect. And of course your similar sort of figures for your estate as well. And then at the bottom there, your mechanical features. So basically if it's got a black dot, that means it's on your Mondeo as standard. Kind of like surprises me the brakes before I say any more. You know, dual line servo assisted front disc brakes, still using self-adjusting rear drums. A little bit disappointed, I think that. However, we do get rear discs on the 2.5 and the 4x4. And like I said, I'm not going to read through all this, but if you ever do want to look at it in more details, please pause the screen. Further specifications. And the thing about the Mondeo, it was well equipped, so you know there's a few pages of these specifications and what they had on them and how they were different between the different specifications. So you know, sometimes we don't give Ford enough credit for doing this, really, because you know there's so many different specifications. You think that'd make it quite difficult to build all these different trim levels, but they certainly did it. And I guess that's the advantage with being a big car manufacturer. Trim, lighting, instruments and controls. The last column, of course, is your gear X, so that's pretty much got everything on there. Your first column is that lowly Aspen. Seats, comfort and convenience. To the end of the specification, we've got the interior features, luggage compartment, and then we've got the options, and this is really what I wanted to have a look at. If you remember that sort of rear wiper on the saloon. Like I say, I think it was just an optional extra on all but the base one. Let's just confirm that. I'm sure it's in here somewhere. Yeah, there we go, at the bottom there. Wipers, rear wiper with electric wash for the 4-door. It's saying there that it's actually standard. Oh, sorry, it must be what does black mean? Yeah, it means it's an option. Okay, so it means it's slightly different. Okay, so the black dots in this case is meaning that it can be an option on that model. So yeah, you can have that rear wiper as an option on your 4-door on everyone but your base model as an optional extra. Just a bit confusing because quite often optional extras used to be just a square with a white in the middle of it. And then metallic paint option on all the different models. So even your lowly Aspen, even though it was featured in that flat red, could be metallic paint if you wanted. It then starts talking about the Ford audio systems. We don't have a great deal of time to look for it all now, but that's interesting to show that 2007 model with that 2050 disc auto changer. Ford cellular systems, looking very old-fashioned. If anything wants to look old-fashioned, it's looking back at old cell phones. Then we get this interesting option page showing these very unusual round fog lamps. So the whole bumper must be a different option there that you could get. Unlimited ways to spend your money, I guess, and different alloy wheels you could get there as well. And then we've got the interior trim colours, which are many. All your different trim colours, which, you know, so much, isn't there? And then we get to the body colours themselves. So we had, in the flat colours, let's start with that. So Ontario Blue was your flat colour. So like I say, your colours that were so like not optional extras, you get these as standard. So Ontario Blue, a flat colour. The white colour at this time was called Diamond White. And then your flat red, which we saw on that very basic Aspen at the start, was Radiant Red. Then we get to the metallic colours, and these were all the optional extra colours. So Electric Current Red, Petrol Blue, State Blue, which is like the dark blue, your Silver, which was Stardust Silver, Black, which was Ash Black, the green, not quite a rare colour, that a Tourmalard green, is it? Tourmalard green. Damson Blue, which looks anything but blue. Probably my favourite, Dark Aubergine. One called Cuirass, which looks horrendous. And this very unusual one, this Loden Green, a very rare colour as well. And then finally, the publication of the earlier brochure. You can see here, edition 1, February 94. And on the later brochure, there's the publication number and March 96. So there we go, that is the first generation Ford Mondeo. Looking at a couple of different brochures, so I hope you enjoyed looking through that. I'm sure there must be many people who've got experiences with this first generation Ford Mondeo. Love to hear them in the comments. I always enjoy reading them, and I do actually read every comment that anyone ever puts on there. It's most appreciated. But for now, we'll say please like the video, and if you could subscribe, that would be fantastic. But for now, we'll say please do take care, have a lovely weekend. Be another episode tomorrow on Saturday, a bit of a Saturday special if you want to have a look at that, and we'll see you soon. Take care and goodbye.